Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Danny Morley. And today, Ellie and I are going to be talking about one of the classes that we're taking this year at MSU, which is all about quantum jumping and DNA recoding. It's taught by none other than Rachel Fiori. And we've been doing this work with her on this, obviously, for a few years for Ellie and I, for about 3 years, 3.5. But we've been doing this last class for about 5 weeks. We 5 weeks in, Elle, is that right? Yeah. And it's been bringing up a lot in both of us in different ways. And we've been experiencing some really, really different and interesting things. And I just wanted to start to unpack some of this and share. And the big kind of realization that I've been coming to the last week and the last few weeks is as I'm starting to connect and quantum jump to a reality where all of my desires and my deepest dreams have come true. I could feel there was this part of me, and there are probably many parts of me, but there was this one piece that I've been really looking at that didn't want that to happen, that didn't want to go there. And obviously, as we accumulate these wounds in our younger life, right, these parts of us get fragmented off, and they have their own agenda. And this is what I feel like I've been battling with for many years now, as I've been trying to heal my gut. Is I have an idea of what I think I want, and how I would like to heal, and then a different part of me takes over and pulls me off that path. And I've really, really been sitting with the fact that there is this huge part of me that doesn't want to go to where I'm trying to lead them. There is a part of me that doesn't want to go to the new earth, that wants to stay small and weak and powerless. It doesn't want to be seen. And it feels very like the energy that's in there is very, very needy. And so as I've been moving through this process of quantum jumping and kind of stretching myself to a more expanded version of me, obviously, the part of me that doesn't want to go there has been resisting like hell. Like, it's been coming up more in the past couple months than I feel like I've ever had to deal with ever. And it's making more sense to me now, because as I'm realizing that, I am a powerful creator being, I'm also powerfully creating the energies of powerlessness. So it's like it's showing up in my life more now in a more intense way than I feel like it ever has. And there's an element to that I'm realizing is because I'm tapping more into my power, and having that realization. And like, there's one thing to hear Rachel say, like, you are a divine creator being. You are always constantly creating. And there's one thing to know that from your mind, but then to have that deep internal shift where you feel it and you know it, oh man, I really am. And seeing over the last month or two, seeing all the ways I've been escaping and avoiding feeling certain things and remaining in this weak and powerless energy, it's showing me how much of a creator I am. But what I'm creating is not my dream reality. And I've had to really sit with that and look at these parts of me and say, wow, there is still this part of me that doesn't want to go there. Why?
Yeah, and I'd love to explore the why with you, because, obviously we're 5 weeks in, And as we are quantum jumping, as we are creating, the reality that is our dream realities, our most abundant reality, or whatever it is, what does that look like for us? And so it is allowing everybody to feel what they need to feel and what needs, to be alchemized when you really quantum jump into that reality. And so watching you has been really interesting, because I can see, and obviously you and I speak about it, a lot of the things that are coming up for you. So I would love for you to dive into the why. What gets activated in you on a deeper level when this assignment of let's quantum jump into your most wealth reality comes up and we do it?
Yeah, there's obviously there's so much fear there of expanding into that state, expanding into that version of me. And it just highlights, it brings up these parts of me that still feel attached. And this obviously, this dates back from, I don't know if it was in the womb, out, like newly out the womb, or whatever, but just this energy of attachment, which, when a child is being formed, obviously they're in the mother, and then they come out and they're attached through the umbilical cord, and there's a healthy level of attachment that we are supposed to have as humans. But then at some point, the human, the baby, the child, that's the process of, bringing a kid up, is learning to create a healthy amount of detachment, and space and individuality. And the part of me, I feel like, that has been holding on, is the part that still feels weak. It feels powerless. It feels needy. It's attached to things. And I can see now that, like, this is where all of this addiction energy in my life has shown up. And I had this incredible deep realization this past couple of weeks, because my cousin actually passed from addiction related. He had an addiction, and he ended up, losing his life because of it, as he was growing up. And this same energy that caused that to happen, I realized, is the same energy that I'm dealing with healing right now. And by me moving through this beautiful process of healing, I'm actually, in some level doing it for him as well, which is so beautiful to think about. In the way that, this is the same energy that's been passed down through all of our ancestors. And if I take the responsibility to do this for me, I also unlock that potential, for either anyone in our past and future, and any human and soul that's been interwoven. I'm not exactly sure how that process completely unfolds, but the few things I've listened to allowed me to kind of realize, like, you doing this and moving through and healing this addictive energy, this energy that just needs something, it's constantly looking for something outside of me, like that, by doing that, it heals it for all the ancestors and the generation that goes back, as well, which is a really cool and beautiful thing to think about, and sit with. But yeah, it's this addictive energy that I've always struggled with, but it's never been like, it was never been like really bad, but it's actually felt really difficult the past couple months. And I see that it's directly correlates to the fact now that as I'm growing in my power and I'm stepping more into the, like, deeper layers of what that means, it's creating more power to create the unconscious programs as well, which were still in there. And we had a beautiful conversation a couple nights ago, Ellie and I, about boundaries. And I realized that I was still setting boundaries for the other person instead of setting boundaries for within myself. And part of the reason is there's still this energy of powerlessness, attachment that is holding on. Obviously, as I mentioned, I feel like it began as a kid with mom and dad. And then, that energy then translocates as we get older onto partners, onto substances, onto, I know for some people it's video games or whatever. That energy can move into different areas of your life. And for me, it showed up, it showed up with food, alcohol, coffee. Obviously, these are things that I've talked about a lot on this podcast. And so really I had to really sit with myself past couple of days and just be like, is this reality that you're seeing yourself create, is this actually what you want? And it isn't what I want. But then I can't go into separation and be like, well, this is what I'm choosing, because there's still a part of me that needs honoring, and needs healing and needs integrating into me. So that's what I've been kind of focusing on.
And so if we talk in inner child wounds, right? If we talk in the language of inner child wounds, can you go deeper into the correlation of this attachment and this addiction pertaining to the inner child wound that's going on here, right? Because there's a little boy that is still wanting to stay attached, or is still looking to other things to hang on to latch on to, which is not allowing you to really enter into this dream reality. So can you talk deeper into that?
I think this relates to a wound that developed when I was a kid, where my parents, I'm sure I've spoken about on the podcast before, my parents were fighting or arguing. I was probably like 3 or 4, and I didn't really know what was happening. And so I felt very powerless, out of control. I felt like my family were going to split up. I didn't really know what to do, because I was so attached to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was so much attachment, mainly to my mom. The thought of losing her was then, extremely traumatic for me as a kid. Like, just the thought of it, it would shake up my whole reality, and I wouldn't know what to believe, what to trust, moving forward. So that's kind of like where it relates. But so that's part of it. The other part of it is the attachment is not having parents who fully knew how to guide a child through the enlightenment process of energetic detachment, right? So this isn't to shame, blame, judge, or do any of that. They did not understand or know. And obviously this is why I came here and chose certain parents in this lifetime to learn these lessons and to know what it means to create boundaries and detach and be able to just honor myself in that way. So part of it is, there's wounding there, and part of it is I didn't receive the education of learning why it's important to detach, instead of having all of that energy, the attachment energy, just nurtured, coddled, and fostered. When we do that, it's trapping that weakness and the powerlessness in there, and doesn't allow for a true independent sovereign being to be developed. So that's another part of it. And then obviously, as I mentioned, like, I feel like this addiction energy has been like brought through generation, like through the ancestors. It definitely feels that way. Like it isn't just a wound that's being activated here. This is stuff which has been passed down generation to generation. It's a lot bigger than that. It's a lot bigger than just one moment as a child. It's like and I'm sure this is energy that maybe I've been trying to work through in other lifetimes and not being able to, because I didn't have these teachings. And at the core of it, the way that I kind of see it or feel it is just this constant search of like, I'm looking for the solution outside instead of, and what I need to guide that part of me is to turn the attention inwards. And I see this also on like a cosmic level, which, as I've dived into what's happening in terms of this battle of the light versus the dark, and this greater, spiritual war that we're in, is part of the universe is trying to consume the other part. And so that's the energy which goes out. So it's always looking for its food outside of itself, instead of realizing that when I connect internally, I can actually fuel myself and not need that thing outside of me. And when I do that, I am entering like it's like a feedback loop of you're connecting back to source. So it's back into oneness. So this is how I experience this this universal spiritual war. And the way that it plays out in my like everyday human life is by being drawn towards certain things, and instead of stopping those programs from running and healing, being the permissive parent and just allowing them to run. So there's so many different layers here. It's to do with like parenting and how I was parented, and being very attached. And I'm sure some of this energy I felt in the womb, which is what I'm sure there was created survival energy that was in there that was being passed down while I was in that container. So I don't really know exactly like the specific moments, because it feels bigger than that. It feels way bigger than that when I tap into it.
And so, as you're quantum jumping, are there also other programs that are getting activated? Like, I know that there's something that you've been working through a lot is the program of unworthiness. Like, is that something that gets triggered of like, I'm not worthy enough to have my dream wealth reality?
Yeah, that's I think that's like a whole other cluster of programs which I see. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that show up a lot in whenever it comes to anything to do with money. Yeah. And I'm sure they're probably related, but just the relationships I had with my parents didn't not make me feel like I was worth a lot. And that was just my experience as a kid. And that means that whenever I'm doing anything to do with money or trying to dream of that, it's like it's hard for me to believe that I could have all my dreams come true.
Yeah.
Yet there's still this part of me that knows that it will. And this is such an interesting paradox, because I'll feel that in one moment, like, oh yeah, actually this brings me on to something else which I want to share. So based on what program has been running, I can feel whether or not that timeline is open. So when I'm really in the thick of it, in all of this stuff that I just brought up, and there's a lot of victim, there's a lot of hopelessness and powerlessness, and then this other part of unworthiness, but staying with the hopelessness and the powerlessness, because I've really been working on that this past couple of days. I don't realize that I'm powerful enough to create my own reality, and therefore powerful enough to have something that I can dream and desire. I don't believe that that's possible. And when I'm in that energy, I can feel that it doesn't feel like it's possible. It doesn't feel like that potentiality exists when I'm in that frequency. And then whenever I make an internal shift, like I did last night, I can feel like I woke up this morning like, now I feel that potential again. So it's been really, really interesting as I have gone through different layers of healing these parts. And I feel like I've been for the past couple of months, I've been jumping around onto different timelines, which remember Rachel talking about this a couple of years ago for 2023 or 2024. And I didn't quite understand what she meant, but now I've actually felt it. So 1 minute I'm in a timeline where I can feel like, yes, this dream that you want is open and you can go there. You're free. You can free to create it. You have to move through the motions, but it's open. It's an open door. And when all of this stuff is running, especially the victim, hopelessness, the powerlessness, I do not feel inside of me like it's going to happen. And that's obviously the reality that I'm then creating. And this is how powerful we are. When we're running and we're in those programs, we're creating that reality. And when we're shifted into our power, and that is obviously an energetic process, and Ellie and I have been doing this work for 3.5 years, so it's not as black and white as just saying, oh yeah, just shift, right? You've got to do the work. You got to learn all the different foundations to arrive at a place now where I feel like I can feel, yeah, I'm on a frequency right now where the dream that I want does not exist. And that means that I've got some work to do.
Yeah, and this is such a beautiful example of what she teaches about fuck your affirmations, right? So if Danny's sitting there and he's saying affirmations to himself like, yeah, I'm rich and I have everything that I want, but the energy behind the affirmation is the opposite of that. He's just reinforcing and creating all of that he doesn't want to create and reinforce, right? And so that's why it's so important for us to check ourselves. That's why it's so important to obviously do the work to see what programs are running when I start really wanting to quantum jump into that, right? Oh, here's the unworthiness, here's the lack, here's your scarcity, here's the whatever the fuck it is. And then that's where we got to do the work. And it's fascinating for me as your partner because I have seen since we've started this class, that addiction energy come up for you and you moving through this from the outside, it could be like, oh my God, what's happening? But I see the beauty of what you're moving through because of how hardcore everything is showing itself to you, right? And the way that you're moving through it is really beautiful and obviously so necessary for all of it. But it's awesome to see you being able to see so clearly what's there that just needs dissolving for you to reach it. Because I do feel and see when you do reach that timeline, I'm like, there he is. There it is, right? But then all the shit that blocks it. And that's just the work that we have to do. It's beautiful because it allows us to see, oh, here's what needs to be alchemized and moved out of the way. It's just trash, right? It's like if you live in a house and a hoarder, like all your programs are, it's the hoarding, right? There's every inch of the room is filled with garbage. And the more alchemy you do, the more that you see it, you're now forming pathways so they could get in and around your huge house. And so that's what I'm witnessing on your journey right now as you're taking this class.
Yeah, and where I was kind of going wrong is the wrong wording, but when this stuff shows up, for a minute I was trying to like just focus on the reality, the desired reality, right?
Yeah.
And this is a lot of what like the positive mindset, that kind of work does. But what was happening is that I was ignoring and dismissing the part of me that actually needed my love.
Yeah.
And so what was happening is I was bouncing back and forth between I'm doing this reality, and then the programs would take over, and then it was like I would get derailed. It was like I felt like I was sabotaging myself, and I really was sabotaging myself because I'm not addressing and looking at, okay, well, why am I derailing myself?
Yeah.
And I had to go into that and make peace with that part of me. And obviously there may be other parts that continue to show up, but now I've seen, okay, it's not about, like, those parts may show up, and that's okay if I do want to continue to sabotage myself, because now I feel like I'm in this energy of being like, okay, I am doing this, that's okay, look at why I'm doing this, instead of, oh, I just need to quantum jump and like, get to another place where this isn't happening. And it's like that piece that's in there that's anchoring me down, that's what needs addressing to set you free to have what it is that you're actually dreaming.
And can I ask you what programs were running that were creating that you were running more programs of sabotage? Like, this whole thing of like, well, I should be able to do that, so I'll just do it, but then ignoring and suppressing. What cluster of programs were there? Because I think this helps people to understand.
Yeah, it's just more different versions and layers of the powerlessness that was in there. So like, and when I first did the quantum jumping class, I couldn't follow Rachel's guidance. And she said, obviously, I shared, I was like, hey, I struggled to, when we went through the portal, I struggled to actually decide, and I ended up just doing more mindy stuff. I didn't really know what I was doing. Obviously, that's why we're in class, and try things out, and then you ask questions and get feedback. And I wasn't willing to follow my own guidance, which was really, really interesting. So then I had to go in. I was like, well, why aren't I doing that? And obviously it was related. I didn't feel powerful enough to go there. There was a lot of fear going there. There was still this part of me that was trying to hold on and resist and hold on to this old reality where I can stay weak and small and powerless.
Mm.
Instead, so it's like, it's all, I look back now, I'm like, oh yeah, it's all the necessary different steps and hoops. And I definitely, it wasn't as smooth. Like, I attended the class and I jumped to my dream
Yeah.
reality, but this is what I've got to move through. These were the layers. I had to make that connection. Okay, this is the jump that I want to make. Now, what are all the different things that I'm still running that are going to block me from having that? It's a natural process. You can't get there. You can't bypass the parts of the shadow that are still showing up
Yeah.
to block you. So I felt too powerless to create the portal. And so I had to go into why. And as I said, it was like all of this, like, I've been moving through more layers of like egoic death. Sometimes I'll come home and just have to sit and just allow myself to just die internally. The parts of me that was just begging, the helpless, hopeless, like very victim energy, helpless, hopeless, powerless. And now, like, we were listening to the hypnosis track last night, which is in part of the course. I'm hearing Rachel say, like, I am the creator, and I'm like, oh, I can feel that now. I can feel that more now. Like, I am the one who's creating this. And the part of me that was showing up very powerless, and at the beginning of the course, is like, I didn't believe that. I'm like, I'm not. I know intellectually
Yeah.
that I'm a creator, but it's like, no.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of
Yeah.
layers.
Yeah, because when you see the program of victim consciousness and you allow yourself to open up to that, and then you'll see all the programs that don't allow you to connect to the fact that you are the creator, right? And so it's beautiful. I love it. I'm just in real time, just letting that sink in. But also, what I think is awesome is it's easier for us to jump into and understand what it means to be the creator of our lives by seeing what we've created and what we don't like, right? And then that shows us, oh my God, we are so powerful. We have all created a reality that we don't love, which means now we can create a reality that we do love, that we do desire. But what are the things in there that are blocking us from creating the reality that we desire?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
cool.
one of the big things which you helped me see is like, all of this was like, oh, like, I still don't know
Mm,
how to set boundaries. And okay, so I'm going to tie this all together. With the addiction energy, I would just allow that energy to come up and take over. There was no boundary. And when I would create a boundary, it came from control. It wasn't from power. I wasn't doing it from a place of, this is what I want to do, and this is why I want to do it, and this is for the good of all. It would either come in as like really rigid and controlling, or no, completely permissive, which are the two opposite ends of the spectrum. So it allows this addiction energy, this like energy that just wants more and more and more and more, and wants to consume and consume and consume. There's no cutoff point for it. So it would cause me to go in these spirals where like, it would just have me looping. So every week I would move through the same thing of like making like, okay, I know that if I have coffee, it's going to not be good for me, but I'm tired and I want it. And then instead of being like, okay, have it this one day, create the boundary, I then have it the next day and the next day. And then like 3-4 days in, I'm completely drained and I have to stop. And then it would just be these loops that I would create. And one of the things to tie this back to what you were saying earlier is I didn't feel like I was worth setting the boundary for. And that's more where the wounding was in this life for sure. Is like, who the fuck gives a fuck about me? No one cares about me. Clearly it's been evidence from, this was what I thought as a child. Like, why would I ever set a boundary? Like, no one cares about me. I don't need to. And then that just allows that energy that wants to consume and take and take and take to go unchecked, and take over. And so I've been having to do a lot of mystical parenting, which is something we teach in the Power Within, our foundational class that we offer. to really guide that part of me. No, I do care about you. I love you. I'm here for you. And work through all the layers of why you felt unworthy. Yeah.
Yeah, and you had a deeper realization around the boundary thing too. It was, no one's ever taught you how to create boundaries. You have no idea what boundaries look like. You don't know how to set them. But also in this whole process, you came to the realization that you only knew you were trying to set boundaries for them and not for yourself. And so
Yeah.
now that you're at this place where you're like, oh, it's for me, it's not for them, right? Because Rachel always says, like, the boundary is not for them, it's for you, right? And like intellectually, people are like, yeah. And it's like, no, you have to really understand what that means. Because when you focus on creating a boundary for other people, you're fucked. Like, that's not what it's about. It's about, no, I'm doing this for me. And when I do it for me, it is for you. So talk to me
100%.
so talk to me a little bit about when that really hit you.
Yeah, I mean, that was you. We were having a conversation and you coached me through it very beautifully. And I just couldn't see from where I was. I knew that I needed to set a boundary, but I was doing it from my mind, and I was doing it to try and allow the other person to see what's happening instead of just doing it because, hey, I need you to stop doing this. Why? Because I don't actually need to say why, but this is my boundary, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is the boundary. I don't want you to keep doing that, and it's not because I don't like you. It's because I love myself enough to not be walked all over, and it ties into all of this like attached energy.
Yeah.
And having that realization and shift, and having the realization of like, oh, I can do that. That's something that I can do. I never thought I could even do that. And again, now we're talking about boundaries. Like, this ties more into like the to set a powerful boundary, we have to be in our own power. But then we also, part of being in our own power is knowing that the person may get really triggered and offended by the boundary that you're creating, and you can empower them to do that, and that's okay. Like, they can be triggered. They may be what they consider as hurt, but you're not hurting them. You're just creating a boundary for yourself. And I've heard that so much. I kind of understood the concept, but I was completely unaware that I was projecting my own powerlessness outwardly, and so trying to create a boundary from this energy of my mind and what they need to hear, instead of what do I need to do and set and say so that I can honor myself, and in that I'm honoring them.
Yes.
And all of that like ties into this like this energy of remaining attached and realizing, no, like, let go of all of the attachments that you're holding on to and create healthy boundaries. And in only doing that am I actually going to be able to quantum shift into this reality that I do treat now today. I do truly desire. But ask me this yesterday and be like, I don't know what I want. I don't, you know. So just really interesting to see within myself, depending on what program I'm running, or if I'm running a program, whether or not what it is that I'm actually desiring. And I had to come to peace with, like, as I mentioned on this podcast, I invited alcohol back in, and there was just parts of me that really just wanted to have a drink at like the end of a day. And so be like, okay, let's have one. Let's do it. Let's have one. Let's not have 10, but let's have one or two. Let's have 2. Do it. And like realizing that energy actually existed, no matter how hard I tried to force it to go away, like that is in there. And that is what I needed to look at and accept that there is a part of me that doesn't want to go to the new earth. And only in that acceptance and surrender,
Yes.
can you see, oh, so I had to see that and accept it and surrender to it in order to actually go, like, to move through the process of healing to go to where it is that I actually want to get to, which can seem counterintuitive, but
Yeah, and just to finish the thread on the boundaries, everything is energy, right? So when you're creating boundaries for other people, there's no power in that. And so those people will break it so easily, right? And then you're back in the same loop and the same cycle and all this stuff. It is only when you create it for yourself, which comes from a place of power, will they be able to feel it. And so, for example, with me too, like I had to learn a lot about boundaries because I was doing it for her. I wasn't doing it for me. And then the moment I was doing it for me, everything started to shift. And so I think every HSP, empath, everyone on this path, like it's something that we have to learn, and we have to go through the stages of what it takes to actually create a boundary from power and not from powerlessness.
Yeah. And obviously, you might see these as separate things, but it's all connected.
Mm-hmm.
So the boundary that I'm talking about setting, like in the act of doing that, relates to the power and the place that I'm coming to within my own inner child, within my own self.
Yeah.
So it's never just like, oh, well, if I create a boundary here, I don't need to do it here.
Yeah.
It's one energy. It's
Mhm.
how you see yourself. It's okay,
Yes.
this is the energy space. That it's not just like, oh, well, I create a boundary in this setting, and then that means I don't have to do anything over here. It doesn't work like that, that separation. It's how I show up on the energetic level to every single thing is me. And so if I'm willing to compromise in this place, it means that I'm probably willing to compromise everywhere else. So what it was like having this big realization that, oh, I have to set a boundary here, and when I'm powerful enough to do that here, it means that I'm also going to be powerful enough to do that
Yes.
within my own like food. Oh, it also means that
Yes.
it happens in my workplace, in my relationships. So it's
Mhm.
never just this, oh, I need to create one boundary here and everywhere else is fine,
Yeah.
or in this one relationship. And it doesn't mean you have to create boundaries in every relationship. If they're
Yeah.
fine, great. I'm just saying, like, if you realize that they're needed and you're not creating them in one place, there's a likelihood that that's the energy that you're still carrying everywhere else. So I had to get having that realization was like, oh, okay. I made the internal shift, and then it felt like everything else has changed once that shift happened.
Beautiful. Awesome. Yeah, it's so exciting to we're only on class 5, we're only on week 5, and it's just really exciting to see as much as we're seeing right now, because you wouldn't be able to see this if we weren't, QJing to, our most abundant wealth reality. So it's just so fascinating to me. It's fascinating. Yeah.
It's very fascinating.
Yeah.
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 And big shifts as ever.
Yeah.
I knew this class was going to be radically expansive. And yeah, it's been I like already feel like, okay, I need to go back and watch everything again,
Oh
because
yeah.
the lens, and I think the energy of which there was always this energy that I've been speaking of, right, showing up for the last 5 weeks. So now I feel like I need to go back and like start again and rewatch all the classes, because I know that I'm going to be coming to it from a different energy and a different place of consciousness. So I'm going to absorb so much more and take things in a different level.
Awesome. Beautiful. Yeah, and I really look forward to personally sharing with you guys on the podcast episodes to come everything that we're moving through and we're experiencing, because on a day-to-day basis is pretty cool. It is really, really cool, and it's fascinating in so many ways. And Rachel talks about this a lot, is after you quantum jump, what's different in your reality, and to see all the different things, how little they are, how minuscule, how big they are in our realities, has been really, really fun. And then you start to really connect to, man, like we are just in a game, and we really do create everything that we experience. And if we can create everything that we've experienced unconsciously till now, now that we know the work, what can we create consciously? And that gets me really excited. And I was telling Danny today, we're just driving home from Costco, and I was like, I am so excited for the latter part of my life, because for all of my life up until 3 years ago, I was creating from programs. That's all I was creating from. It was just the depression, all this stuff. And I've had this major shift in my life recently where I'm not waking up anymore in a dark cloud. I'm choosing, and I'm not consenting to a reality anymore where I just run programs amok of just like everything sucks. This is existence sucks. I hate this life. Like I've shifted out of that. And now I'm really sitting in the seat of being the observer. When programs get activated, like I just observe them and I'm like, okay, here's this program and here's that program, here's this program. Let's not get lost in it. Let's just do the work to start dissolving them. And so there's so many little shifts into connecting back to your soul, essentially, is really what it is, and getting out of your mind and stop letting the programs completely take over. And so for anyone that's a first year student and you're listening to this, your second year is going to be, I mean, your first year is amazing. Second year is just the next level, but wow, it's some really cool stuff.
Yeah, that was the first time I feel like I've heard you, not heard you, felt you.
Yes.
Actually genuinely excited for your life.
Yes. Just I have to laugh about it because it's been really sad. And I asked Danny, I was like, Danny, do you feel in me different? Like, am I different to you in terms of like, I'm not this like mopey, like sad little girl anymore. like life sucks. And you said yes, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, right? When Ellie and I met, she had already started leaving the career that she chased her for, you know, over 10 years. And you hadn't completely detached from that, but you were, you know, you had started that process. And when we met, you know, you'd started this work. So all I've known of you has been the person that is like in this transition period.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm sure if we would have met 10 years ago, the side of you, the version of you I would have seen is the all passionate gung-ho person about acting and hosting and being on TV, which I obviously still see. But the energy there has definitely shifted. So yeah, like let me ask this real quick. Like, what were you like maybe like 5-10 years ago? Was the energy that was being fueled into your career, was it you had all these big dreams?
Yeah, I had all these big dreams. I thought I was going to achieve all of them. I thought I was going to be like this huge big thing. But most of the time I was in these frequencies of, I don't know if it's actually going to happen. I don't know if that's going to be something that's possible for me. Like I was seesawing constantly, but most of the time when I wasn't in the, it's going to happen, I was in the, it's not going to happen, which was majority of the energy that I lived in.
So you were flip-flopping between like, oh my God, I have this big, huge dream. And then the programs would obviously take over and then you would create that reality.
Yeah, because every audition I would do, I was like, that wasn't good, or like, this is not great, and I'm not getting a call back. And so in my physical reality, what kept filtering to me was, it's not going to happen. How is this going to happen? You know, so it created so much anxiety and so much self-doubt and so much misery, and it was just awful. And now I'm in a place where like, I really truly feel, and maybe I'm not at 100 yet, but I'm pretty like a 95, 96, where I have let that part of me die so hardcore. Like I don't even, when I see people like doing auditions, things like that, like I don't feel anything anymore. I'm walking into this place now, and this is part of what, if for any of you will take a quantum energy class, something that Rachel taught us yesterday was, you know, just really living in and experiencing and creating the reality that you truly, you know, desire for yourself, that you truly see. And when I spent time with myself yesterday, I was in this place where I just want my soul to lead. I am here to let my soul experience, create, and live in whatever my soul wants to do. That's it. None of my ego, none of all of this. Like, I want to be an actor. Like, fuck all that shit. What is my soul asking me to do? What does it want to experience in this life? And when I really tapped into that and I let that guide, I felt freedom, like complete freedom. And I'm like, this is what I came here to do, is just to become and let my soul be the guide.
Right. And this is a beautiful like ending point to talk about, which is the work that we do is about soul integration, right? Is heal your wounds, heal your programs, allow your soul to integrate. And it's really, there's a lot of things that are out there about like manifesting your dream reality and all that kind of stuff. But most of it is coming from our ego. It's not coming from our soul. And so, yeah, you could create that. Like Maybe
Yeah.
there are people out there that could help. Like, great, cool.
Yeah.
But you're not doing it from your soul. So
No.
you're not living up to your highest potential
Yes.
of what you are, came down here to do.
Yes.
So, and that's a question that I constantly come back to. Or like, what is my program? This vision that I'm seeing, is this coming from my soul, or is it coming from my soul and being filtered through my programs and wounds? And that is something that we as we elevate, we constantly have to refine.
Yes.
Is this coming from my mind? Is this coming from my ego, a part that wants something out of this? Or is this truly coming from a place of my soul divinity? And that's the work that we do, is to work through all those layers. And now look at you, like, moving into a completely different life path, something that you feel more aligned within your heart, and creating that.
Yep. And it's exciting, and I'm excited, and I know that the more that I keep just dissolving, whatever's there that keeps me in, the old life and the old world and the old versions, like, wow, I'm pumped for what the latter part of my life is looking like and what it's going to look like. So,
And last question, and you might not 100% know this, and that's okay, but how do you know you're more aligned with your soul now than you were 10 years ago?
because I feel free. I feel so much more free. I was in a cage 10 years ago. Even 5 years ago, I was in a cage. I was locked up and I was drowning in suffering, and now I'm not that. And what I feel is freedom. I really feel like I'm a surfer on like the biggest wave in the ocean, and I'm just cruising. Like, that's what I feel like.
Beautiful. Great way to end it. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for listening. And if you're interested in learning how to quantum jump, then you got to be a second year student, but don't worry. Sign up for the first year. Our next enrollment will be in May. So we will be enrolling everyone in April of 2025. So if you're interested, you can sign up for pre-enrollment now, and we will see you in the next podcast episode. Thank you so much for listening, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.